My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. We need to get back to our study of 1 Corinthians chapter 15 and the resurrection, and Paul's statement there in 1 Corinthians 15, 55 and 56, that the resurrection would be when sin, the sting of death, would be overcome. Let me say this. If you therefore deal with sin, you've dealt with death. And nothing could drive that home more than our comparison between Romans 5-8 and 1 Corinthians chapter 15. You see, in both of these sets of passages, Paul is dealing with, as we've demonstrated over and over, Paul is dealing with the death of Adam and the life of Christ. As in Adam all men die, 1 Corinthians 15, even so all shall be made alive. As by one man sin entered the world, and death through sin, Romans 5:12. There is absolutely no doubt whatsoever that these chapters are dealing with the same problem. It is the problem of Adamic death and resurrection life in Christ. Now, I shared with you in our last examination of Romans chapter 7 how Paul defines that death, the death of Adam, for us. And there can be no doubt about it, he's not talking about biological death. I was alive once, Paul said, without the law. The commandment came, sin revived, and I died. Paul is talking about the recapitulation, the retelling of the story of Adam. Adam was alive. He sinned. And he died. Same story. Now, pretty obviously, as we pointed out, Paul is absolutely not saying that he had been alive biologically at some point of life, time in the past, and then had died as a result of violating Torah. I'm sorry, that just simply doesn't work. And so Paul continues that discussion in Romans chapter 7, verse 10. And the commandment, which was to bring life, I found to bring death. For sin, taking occasion by the commandment, deceived me, and by it killed me. Now let me ask you a question here. If biological death is the death that comes upon every single human being as a result of the sin of Adam, then guess what? Paul didn't need Torah to sin and to die. He didn't need any law. Because after all, if we inherit the death of Adam, we're going to die. Period. But Paul is talking about the death that comes through sin. Wherefore, as by one man's sin entered in the world, and death through sin, therefore death passed upon all men, because all men sinned. This is sin death. It is not biological death. And if it's not biological death, folks, then that means that the death to be overcome at the resurrection of 1 Corinthians 15 is not biological death. Let me reiterate this point. If the death of Adam is biological death, and that passes on all men, sinner or saint, then Paul didn't need the law to die. He didn't need, you got to catch the power of this. He didn't need even to sin to die if he inherited biological death from Adam. Paul did not inherit Adam's sin. Right here he says it. I sinned, I died. Paul did not say, I died because I got Adam's sin. No, I died because I sinned. And so right here, Paul is laser focused on defining the death that comes through sin. The wages of sin is death. You know, that's really so simple. And yet it's so challenging to the traditional paradigm. I want to say this one more time. If mankind, the totality of mankind, if we inherit biological death from Adam, because we are born biologically into Adam, then we don't need sin to die. But Paul said he was alive without the law. Well, boy, you can't say that, because after all, you've inherited the sin and the guilt and the death of Adam. Paul said, no, I was alive, just like Adam was alive before he sinned. But Paul said, I sinned and I died. He therefore did not inherit death from Adam. He took part in death, the death that came through sin. But to reiterate, that was not biological death. And thus, biological death is not the death to be overcome when sin, the sting of death, would be overcome. As we will see, Paul will even drive home the point that he is dealing not with biological death, but sin death, spiritual death. So, you don't want to miss it. We'll see you on the flip side.